Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making the Daffodil Romper by Peekaboo Pattern Shops. I'm going to be making the short sleeve version with the shorts, and I'm going to be doing the optional pockets. So some of the pattern pieces you're going to need are your neckband, your pocket pieces, your sleeves. These are my short fronts, short back pieces. This is the bodice top and the bodice back. And it does have a really nice back scoop that I think is really cool. All right, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I always like to do on all my sewing patterns is prep hems. So for both the sleeves and the pants or shorts, it's a 3/4 inch hem. So I'm gonna go ahead and fold those and press them just to memory press the hem, and then I'll get started sewing together. Okay, so I went ahead and just did a memory press on all the pant pieces and the sleeves. So the next step is to take the two bodice pieces and we're going to put them right sides together, and we're going to pin at the shoulder seams. And this pattern uses a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So then we'll take this to, I'm going to use my serger, and I'm going to sew this together with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. You can use a domestic sewing machine, but make sure you use a stretch stitch. Okay, so once the shoulder seams are attached, we're going to attach the sleeves. So I like to mark the midpoint of the sleeves with a little snip my scissors. And then I'll put them right sides together. And I like for the shoulder seam to go towards the back, just so I make sure it goes the same way when I do the neckband. Pin this at the center. And I'll pin the sleeve into place. And I'll do this for both sleeves, and then I will attach it at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, so I went ahead and attached the sleeves. So now we're going to put the shirt or the bodice right sides together, and we're going to close up these side seams. So I like to sandwich these seams. So I fold one to the right and one to the left, and I pin that in place. And then make sure you unfold. If you prepped any hems, make sure you unfold them at this part. And we're gonna sew this up using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Do this for both sides. And I'm also gonna prep my neckband now, just so I can sew it while I'm at my sewing machine. I'm gonna grab my neckband and we're gonna sew the short edges together. So I'm gonna take two right sides together and the short end, and I'm gonna sew this together also using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, so cute. The top bodice is all sewn together. Now we're just going to add the neckband. So I usually would have pressed this beforehand, but I forgot. So I'm going to take this to my iron, the neckband piece, and I'm going to press this in half. And then we're going to pin it to the shirt, and then we're going to stretch to fit when we sew it on. Okay, so I went ahead and pressed my neckband in half so that the wrong sides are together, and I pinned the seam, the two marked points, and the mid point. And so I just need to mark the center front and the center back of my bodice. And do that with a very tiny snip, because this one's only going to have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so I want to make sure you don't do too big of a snip. Or you can use a marking tool, however you want to mark that center point. Okay. So now this lower neckline is the back. And so I'm going to match up the seam on the neckband with my center back point. I'm going to clip that in place, and then the next points are the shoulder marks, and those were marked on the pattern. And I always make sure that the shoulder seam is going the same way as when I attached the sleeve, so I always try to go to the back so that I remember. I'm going to do the other shoulder point. Make sure, yep, to the back. Make sure it's not twisted. Match up those seams, pin in place, and then this will be the center front. And so I'm going to sew this in place using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to stretch to fit the neckband as I sew. And then I'm going to iron the neckband, and then the pattern says you should, after that, you should top stitch it and go ahead and hem your sleeves. My serger and cover stitch are a 2-in-1 machine, and I'm still learning the cover stitch part, but I do want to get better at it, so I might hold off on top stitching to see if I can get the cover stitch to work. But I'm going to refold my memory hem, memory press, whatever you want to call it, just to keep that memory there. And then, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and sew that on, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I went ahead and pressed the neckband, and then I'm going to top stitch this later. I'm going to set that to the side. I grabbed my 2 front short pieces, and I grabbed 2 pocket pieces, and I have them right sides together, lined up with the marked point on the shorts. and I'm going to clip that in place. We're going to sew this on at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And we're going to do this to both the front shorts and the back shorts. I'm going to keep my pieces straight though. So these are the two front shorts. I'm going to grab the two back shorts. I usually mark them with a blue clip, so I'm actually going to leave my blue clip on. Grab another blue clip, blue for back, and then right sides together with that marked point. And again, I'm going to sew these on with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. I'm going to use my domestic sewing machine to sew these on. And once you sew this on, you're going to press the pocket away from the pants. Okay, now that I have attached the pockets and top stitched them, we're going to take the back pieces and the front pieces and put them right sides together. So let's see, this one is going to go on top of this one. And we're going to sew these together at a 1/2 inch seam allowance along the inseam and the side seam. And if you did the pockets, you're going to go around the pockets to make sure that's all nice and lined up. And if you did the memory press for the hem, also make sure that you unfold that for this part. So we're going to do the side seam. And then we're going to do the inseam. And the back pieces are wider than the front pieces, so they're not going to lay perfectly flat here, but they do line up just like that. So that, and then see, this is wider, and then we'll sew the side seam and the pocket, and we'll do that for both pant legs. Okay, so once those are sewn together, you're going to turn one pant leg right side out. And you're going to put the right side out pant leg inside the inside out pant leg. And we're going to pin or clip the inseam together, and then we'll sew that together at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once you've finished sewing the pants together, now we're going to sew the basting stitches to attach the bodice and the pants together. So you're going to sew 2 rows of basting stitches, one at 1/4 inch and one at 3/4 inch, and then we're going to pull those tight and put these 2 right sides together to make them fit. It's hard to tell which one's the back of the pants, which one's the front of the pants. So I had my clip still on here, so I'm going to go ahead and like mark a little B there just to remind me. Remember to keep your basting or your tails long so that we can pull them tight. And I decided to do the basting stitches end at the side seam so that I can pull the front and the back together, gather them separately. So once you've sewn on those basting stitches, we're going to turn the pants inside out so that when we put these 2 together, they'll be right sides together. And this is the front. I just write a B for back. And so we're going to gather the pants by pulling on the bobbin strings, and then we'll attach the bodice and the pants together. Find my bobbin strings here. Okay, got these 2. Just going to work with the front or the back, and then I'll do the other side. I'm actually going to mark the midpoints of my bodice. So this is the front. We want front to front. And I'm going to match up the midpoint here. And the side seams, and then I'll gather to fit. Yeah. up, Sam? Okay, and once you have attached those together, my last step, because I didn't do it earlier, is to top stitch the neckband and then hem the sleeves and the shorts. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and then the romper will be complete. All right, and so I have top stitched the neckband and I hemmed both sleeves and the shorts. So it's all done. Love the way this turned out. All three of my little girls are gonna love this and ask for different versions of it. So I'm excited to try sewing up the pants with the elastic version next. All right, thanks for watching.